Oh, it gets a little dark. It gets darker. If ISIS beheaded you, they would blur your face. ISIS. They're a veritable font of comedy. I gotta stop calling back to that. Back on track. ISIS. They need to be stopped. I'll make it more palatable. All right, we'll make it palatable. Italian ISIS. All right? What's your favorite size? Small, medium, or Ariana Grande? That's only a month old, right? ISIS attack? ISIS, they need to be stopped. Seriously, how many people have they killed now? 11? Something like that? For over a decade, the U.S. has been liberating the Middle East of the tyranny of home ownership and running water and family members. You know, if you're happy and you know it, find your arm, all right? Quit bleeding on your rubble. For freedom, quit bleeding on your rubble. The terrorists hate our freedom, so we're going to liberate them. If I was a terrorist, they hate our freedom, so we're going to free them. If I was a terrorist, I'd have been like, we hate your water parks, we hate your models, we hate Italian sports cars and money and infinity pools. I don't know. I think ISIS would be more prolific. Look, this stuff needs to be said because we all oppose the war, so it should be part of contemporary dialogue. But the good news is 200,000 Iraqi civilians no longer oppose the war, but there are many who have yet to be murdered. So, yeah, it's too bad. I know, it's terrible. We shouldn't be doing that. Could you imagine, like, they'd be more prolific if they didn't give, like, a 45-minute lecture before killing people? They have, like, a PowerPoint going on and stuff. Could you imagine if our soldiers had to do that? Like, hey, my name's Daryl, and I'm going to shoot this dude for financial aid. Go, Bulldogs. You know? All right, we'll lighten the mood. We'll lighten the mood. We'll lighten the mood. We'll lighten the mood.
The content of the following podcast is of a highly sensitive nature and has only recently been declassified for a limited time before we put it back in the vault.
See, Disney, we can do it too.
Yeah, fuck your lawyers, Disney. We don't give a fuck.
Disney is a registered trademark of the Walt Disney Corporation. We claim no affiliation with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiaries.
The opinions expressed are those of the characters in this bit we're doing and do not represent the views of Craig Lewis, Nathan Kappesser, or Secret Room Multimedia.
I'm Craig Lewis.
And I'm Nathan Kappesser.
You wanted it, folks. Everybody was clamoring for more Dan McCort, so we brought him back.
He's back, despite what the courts said. He's back.
Despite what the legal binding documents say.
Fuck your lawyers. He don't give a fuck. Dan McCort, the one, the only, the hilarious Dan McCort.
Very funny man.
Came back to the secret room to talk our ears off yet again, and it was a lot of fun. Longtime listeners may remember him from episode, I think it was 91 of Fair Point Podcast.
The fish episode.
Yes.
And I'll tell you right now, this to me is a much more interesting topic than fish. Like we were doing fish with him, and I was like, holy shit, we should have been doing conspiracy theories.
Yes, it was an episode about our aquatic friends, the fish.
Yes, the fish food.
No, it was a episode.
The Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
It was an episode about the band which the Ben and Jerry's ice cream is named after, the hippie stoner druggy jam band Fish.
That was a good time too. That got a little crazy and out of hand at points, but it was a fun time overall.
It was, and I recommend the episode whether or not you like Fish, especially if you enjoy the episode that you're about to listen to, which you're going to enjoy, that is.
Yeah, it's going
fun.
To blow your fucking mind.
Oh, it's going to blow something, all right.
Yeah.
Dan McCort had an agenda with him
He
today.
certainly did. That was an agenda to shed some light on the things you thought you knew.
Yeah, but did you?
No.
Exactly.
I didn't know.
We're talking about conspiracy theories today. And
Which ones? All of them.
all of them. Dan McCort has his own particular worldview, which he would like to share with us. And it's we're talking aliens.
It's interesting.
We're talking aliens. We're past it's interesting.
It's aliens.
It's aliens. That's right.
Aliens. Why
Why bury the lead? Dan McCort believes in aliens. What a loon.
Yeah.
What a veritable nutcase.
What a Barney Hill.
And he's here to talk to us about our alleged ancient alien astronaut ancestors.
The Smiths.
Yeah. As in, like, just a generic surname?
No,
or
the band.
The band.
The band. Morrissey's come back to save us all. And then left without saving any of us.
No, he's just alienated. That's not what that word means, Craig. I keep telling you. Being alienated is not as cool as you seem to think it is.
Well, when you have an ant farm, but say that it's an alien one.
Craig just keeps begging. He's like, I want to be alienated. It sounds awesome.
I've become an alien. Drop me off on Mars. I'm good to go.
What kind of superpowers do you think we're gonna get, Nathan? I'm like, what? Yeah, like they said, we're gonna alienate our audience. What kind of superpowers do you think they're gonna get?
Aliens don't have superpowers, Craig.
So speaking of being alienated, Dan McCort and his signature brand of comedy are back in the secret room, and he has a new audio CD or just MP3 that you can download. It's probably an M4A.
Also, if you're easily offended, don't even bother. This isn't for you.
Oh, do it.
Or do it and see how far you can get before you want to write an angry letter to somebody.
Write him an angry letter, I'm sure.
Write him an angry letter, write us an angry letter. Why not? Just don't, follow through on any of the things you say about us.
Any threats. Just don't follow through on any threats. And we're good.
We're good.
So, Dan McCort has quite the controversial brand of comedy, but I find it seems to come from a place of frustration with the stupidity of the world around us.
Oh, frustration with the hierarchy.
And apparently, I wasn't aware, but also frustration with the reptilian overlords.
Oh, I mean, if you believe in them, you're going to be frustrated with them.
Let me clear the air here, open the window and clear the room. Dan McCort is not Ikean. He's not a follower of David Icke. He doesn't believe in reptilian Illuminati.
And it's important we make sure these things are known before going into this because we do not want to mislead people.
No, he'd rather talk to you about the federal bank, and also he's heavily influenced by a lot of the theories put forth by Zecharia Sitchin in I read his book, The 12th Planet, when I was a kid. I don't know any of his other books. Maybe I do, but I don't, not off the top of my head.
Well, good.
And
Great. That is in no way crazier.
And his ideas about a Planet X out there, which he calls Nibiru, and the mysterious alien visitors, which were also our progenitors.
My only question is if it's the
Your
12th
only question?
planet. Okay, my first question is if it's the 12th planet, is Pluto considered a planet at this stage?
Was back then.
Okay, so where's
Mr.
10 and 11?
Stitchin, if it's really the 12th planet, why didn't they know better than to not count Pluto?
Yeah. Or what happened to planets 10 or 11? Or is it really the 10th planet and they just call it 12?
And actually, we were plugging his album. It's called Humor Trafficking, and it's
funny,
fucking hilarious.
It's really good
and very insightful. You heard a clip from it at the beginning of this podcast.
Sure did. Can't wait to hear more.
And if
I bet you can't.
Yeah, if that didn't turn you off and alienate you, then
this is the podcast for you.
Yeah, you're gonna
absolutely.
Love it. We don't just talk about aliens either. We talk about a lot of other stuff, and it's a lot of fun. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and I hope he comes back again soon. And
tons of fun.
I really hope you guys will go not just listen to his new comedy album, but buy it on iTunes or Amazon. But you can find it for free on his YouTube channel. Just Google or YouTube Dan McCort. Or if you forget his name, remember that brilliantly punny album title.
Humor Trafficking.
Humor Trafficking.
Yeah, so like Spike Lee said, just do the right thing.
and go buy his album.
Go
it's
buy
only,
it.
what, $10 or something? It's worth it. It's worth it.
Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into the swing of things. Talking to our pal, Dan McCort.
Get your ass in here and let's talk about some motherfucking conspiracies.
Conspiracies!
No, not you, Willie.
Wrong pal.
I've been briefed a little bit, and I've heard through your stand-up some of your areas of interest. But
We don't really know how deep it goes. What do you want to start with?
I guess
What's your go-to conspiracy?
I'd like to.
you Coke. It was intended to fail.
No.
I thought we agreed that I would get a line of Coke before we got into this.
No, not a line of Coke, a can of Coke. Coke with lime.
Oh, Coca-Cola. Damn. No,
They literally don't make it like they used to.
Unfortunately, we literally don't even have that for him.
I want to say that I feel like there's a certain irony that is present here, that I'm doing this on your podcast, and I'm not atheist. I think atheist implies that you definitively don't believe in God. I'm just certainly not a Christian, and what I wanted to say is I think it's fun if you're Christian, but I think it's lunacy to just bring that up in conversation.
Fair enough.
So I want to say that my beliefs are equally as disturbing and disconnected from reality. The difference is I never admit to what I believe in, so I think it's really ironic that I'm going on a radio show and I'm about to embarrass myself because there's such... I believe in
Let
the
us
most
decide
ridiculous... Oh, trust me. By the end of this, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
One step ahead of you there. It's very evident and obvious that there are... I feel like you'd have to be an idiot to believe that there aren't conspiracies going on, because then you're willfully ignoring human history in which... time and time again, it has been proven there have been conspiracies.
Well, just based on definition alone, there's two ways to approach it. One is just the Oxford English Dictionary, which is the most referred to with regard to English. Conspiracy is...
Webster's defines conspiracy as...
Or Urban Dictionary, where you go. What is docking? And... don't look it up. It's terrible.
No, you're better off not knowing.
No, but a conspiracy is a clandestine collusion between two or more people. So if you...
Obviously, that's impossible.
Yeah, if you're gossiping, that is a form of conspiracy. But then there is conspiracy theory in the cultural sense, which is usually stigmatized as...
Crazy
beliefs people have that are unsubstantiated about the true nature of large entities and organizations, like the government is doing such and such. And sane, rational people are like, that couldn't happen. The CIA would never give crack cocaine to underprivileged black people in Los Angeles.
Stay your tongue.
And
Yeah.
the problem is a symptom of schizophrenia is recognizing patterns everywhere. And
Yeah.
so that becomes associated, and paranoia. So when
The
you're
fret-
recognizing
but wait.
patterns and you're paranoid, and then you're theorizing about conspiracies, there's so many people doing that it becomes associated with it. And it is a shame that people don't, like, it tarnishes the name of conspiracy theory and people don't take it seriously.
It frustrates me. That's exactly the point I wanted to make. Is
But I have a FX series that proves that they did put crack on the streets.
Yeah, that actually made front page news. I believe the New York Times, after the whole Iran-Contra scandal, Oliver North issue had come out. There was an investigative journalist, I don't know his name off the top of my head, that clearly laid out exactly what was going on, that they were working with a cartel called the Medellin cartel in the 80s to make billions of dollars to finance the Contras in, I don't know if it was a civil war or they were selling arms to the Contras. And so both of them are extremely nefarious. But if you were to say that in 1985, the CIA sells cocaine to Americans,
You would have been nuts.
yeah, it would have been like, you're a lunatic.
Wait, what? No, the government is there to protect and help us.
And yeah, all the schizophrenics who were wearing the tinfoil was like, the government's killing African Americans, never got vindicated. They were like, you're still homeless. You may have been right, but get away.
Yeah.
You know.
Like, little victories, okay?
Yeah.
If you look at things like fucking Bohemian Grove and
Yeah.
like the Skull and Bones group, like those are all like real verified things that sound crazy. And I'll be like, no, guys, like for real, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's all legit. Like George W. Bush and John Kerry are both still, like they still attend meetings for the Skull and Bones Society, which is a secret society.
supposedly a satanic order or something.
Whether or not it is, they refuse to acknowledge it when they're asked about it. They
Go back
pretend
to-
it doesn't exist, but you can verify and
Well,
prove
yeah,
that
there's
it does.
documented evidence of people denying Bohemian Grove. So there is it clearly exists. What goes on there is...
Go back to our Bohemian Grove episode of Fairpoint Podcast.
shameless.
You had one?
Yeah, we did do an episode
Shameless
on Bohemian Grove.
self-promotion.
No.
Why don't we
No,
just
I
go
swear.
through your episode list and plug them all?
Okay, we're going to hit them all. Apparently, we're the conspiracy podcast now.
Okay, episode 1.
I have a question, though. A lot of that shit with the Iran-Contra scandal came out, and like still people will tell you that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That was all bullshit. But at what point does the facts come out and we find out that this conspiracy was true? Does it stop becoming a conspiracy theory and just fact?
No, it's still pretty much stigmatized. It never gains cultural acceptance for the most part. So the cocaine proliferation, there's been books written about it and stuff, but for the most part, being what I would consider a really heavy conspiracy theorist myself, the big difference I've found is that the general public who do not believe in conspiracies accept authority as truth. So authority would be a publication like the New York Times. So they take authority like the New York Times as truth.
Fake
and
news.
I think the difference where I diverge is that I take truth as authority. So I equally weigh the homeless psychotic on the street and his information to the New York Times.
You might give a little more credence to the New York Times than the homeless guy.
Yeah, I use my own discretion. I realize he's a crazy homeless person, so I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. But
he might know more about God.
The big difference is I use my discretion. Like I try to figure out what's going on a larger scale based on what I grew up in school, problem solving. Does this seem logical? Does this make sense?
And the problem with that is confirmation bias, especially with the internet, with how much information is being uploaded to the internet every
garbage.
day. Yeah, but you can find a way to verify pretty much anything on the internet, and that's not to shoot down. That's one of the hurdles and problems.
I know, it's such a self-indulgent thing where you're like, I bet you feminists are wrong about whatever, and then you just look to find your answer.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah.
And the technology is in your hand. You could be right in the middle of an argument. Like, I asked for broccoli pizza. You see, it says right on your website that you have broccoli from 4 to 5. Yeah, it's with the amount of technology and the amount of information that is circulating right now, it's almost overwhelming. And I think we can all agree, like, we were like the final generation to grow up without that. I mean, we still played outside. But I got into conspiracy theory about a decade ago, and my entry into what I would consider the rabbit hole, which is extremely deep and very convoluted.
Many tunnels, then.
I mean, lunacy. So what I'm saying ahead of time is like,
You're
what I
crazy.
might admit to here is I'm embarrassed to believe this. So if I told myself 15 years ago, this is what you're going to think in 15 years, I would have punched myself in the face like you're an idiot.
I'm never going to grow up to be like you.
Yeah, I know. I would have
Rebellious.
embarrassed about my future. But it all started with Building 7 in 9/11. And the big thing about Building 7 was I think that the general public didn't know anything about it. They think 2 skyscrapers fell on 9/11. There were actually 3 skyscrapers that fell. But nobody seems to know that. And the only reason I know that is because I used to bring it up in my act, and nobody would know what Building 7 was.
Even when they're confronted with that information, I see a lot of people. I know it's a raw subject. A lot of people are still reeling from experiencing the tragedy firsthand. I know there are people now that have not
It's like
experienced
Munchausen syndrome. Well, I was in Connecticut, and I had a friend
Yeah.
who lived in New York once, and that was kind of affecting because, like, I like I've never been, but you don't have no relation to that.
Right, right. But this shit is still raw for a lot of people. So even when
Yeah.
they're confronted with actual facts that not everything adds up, they're still vehemently in denial that it could be anything but a terrorist attack.
Well, people don't want their, and this isn't a judgment on that specifically, but in general, people don't want their beliefs to be challenged or changed. To me, like the best example is
Keep asking.
how many people a year, I think on average, 7 people a year tell you that you swallow 7 spiders a year in your sleep. And
Yeah.
that is just not true. It was made up in an email chain letter. And like I can
Oh, thank God.
I can't on the spot cite sources.
I
but,
didn't
like,
know this was a conspiracy theory, but I thankfully it was.
it's not true. And whenever somebody brings it up to you, to me, and I'm like, well, actually, that's not true. I read about it. It started from an email chain letter in the 90s. It was made up fact, and then it got propagated, but it's not true. They'll be like, no, it is true.
Well,
And
you want to know?
I'm like, well, wait, how do you know it's true? And they're like, well, it is. And I'm like, well, why? Did you read it somewhere? Did somebody tell you it? I don't want to
That's-
talk about it. It's just true.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and that is the issue with conspiracy theory is that it's derogative and people look down on you because they don't use self-analysis. Are you using authority as truth or are you using logic as authority? The same thing with the urban legend that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure that can be seen from space. If all you have to do is think about it, well, why wouldn't our highways be seen? They're made of the same thing.
Why wouldn't something taller than the Great Wall of China? Because there are definitely buildings that are taller.
I mean, I know Route 90 stretches across the country. It's a little bit wider. It's 4 lanes. It's wider than the Great Wall of China. Why wouldn't
Call me
that
when
be
you're 8
seen?
lanes, sweetie. That's cute. That's real cute with your 4-lane highway.
What are you, a trucker? Yeah, but you have to look at things logically. So when we get further down into this and talking about the potential for the existence of extraterrestrials, which I'd like to get to at some point, I think you have to listen to it. I don't want to say with an open mind because every time somebody says that, I'm immediately like, he's just lying. I think just listen to it and think about it logically.
I don't actually believe that there is any extraterrestrial conspiracies going on. However, I do think that if there were, I would have that position. I wouldn't know about it, and I would think that there weren't. And there would be no reason at all that anyone on Earth should think that there were aliens in control if there were. So
Yeah.
I totally concede that if that were the case, there's no reason I should know or even suspect it.
They're that good at what they're doing that
Why
they're
wouldn't
making
they be?
sure.
They're fucking aliens that run the Earth. Of
Okay,
course
listen.
they'd be that good at their jobs.
They're aliens that have convinced the people that run the Earth that they now run the Earth only because they're aliens. It's like putting the aliens on a pedestal. All right, you don't do that.
How about we attack it this way?
Don't put the Pleiadian on a pedestal.
I think this would be pretty grounding and a good platform to step off because it goes into fractional reserve banking too, which is easily explainable, and it's not as boring as it sounds. But why don't
Right, I'm sure.
Well, it's a system of control that was brought about in the dawn of culture in Mesopotamia. The first notable civilization with written documentation spoke of having roads, government, monetary system, debt, interest, they had music, all these things, and it happened very abruptly. What I would argue factor into it is the potential for extraterrestrial intervention.
It was coached to us by aliens.
I think the more I learn about science and like the origins of the world and the universe and just like what we know about it, I'm really starting to lean into the idea that it may be a possibility that we were in some way engineered, and maybe even life in the universe itself was engineered. And like,
Well, are you going all alien? Like,
I don't know.
on
Like,
us?
I don't know. It's almost a religious thought. It's almost a alien engineer, like Ridley Scott type.
We were just
thought.
an accident by Ridley Scott's ideas.
I mean, I know this is a tired thing that everybody knows, but like the conditions that have to be met, not just for life to exist, it's ridiculous. And given infinite time, this scenario will happen. Monkeys on a rock will start thinking about the universe. Like, given infinite time, that's bound to happen.
yeah,
But
now is when it starts.
it's still so improbable and weird that there's an animal on Earth, whereas every other animal on Earth gives birth and the animal comes out ready to walk and run away from predators. We have to give birth early because our brains are so big because they have to think about how the universe works. So we give birth to our babies before they're able to defend themselves, before their bones are connected, and they're literally just like walking things waiting to be eaten, not walking, laying there, things that can't even walk or crawl waiting to be eaten that we have to like protect and put in
Can't climb
cribs.
trees.
It's morbid. Their skulls aren't formed. It's almost morbid.
So if there was a just universe, we would all be born with the ability to be programmed.
No, I'm saying it's weird given biology on this planet. It is very weird that something which thinks so much that we have to give birth early and then take care of our babies prenatally outside of the womb so that they're able to think about the nature of the universe when they grow up. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah, I can sound crazy too.
Oh, now I just got
no,
it.
you sounded totally unhinged. I was I was digging it.
That moment when I just realized I'm the sanest one in here. Yeah.
Don't get used to it. You're
Yeah,
crazy
I know,
elsewhere.
it's coming.
So, my argument is logical in nature. I believe incredibly insane, crazy things that take a huge leap of faith. But I'll start very basically. Let me just... Okay, so it started pretty innocuously with a conversation I overheard between two people who just seemed to be talking about races of extraterrestrials that existed as though they existed, and they both sounded very convincing.
Those two people just happen to be God and the devil. It's not an important detail. I'm just going to gloss over that.
It was actually Jesus and my mother, and no, but it got me to thinking the plausibility of it. And if you think about it, we live in a green zone, a habitable planet, and there are over 1 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and there are over 1 billion galaxies in the visible known universe. So scientists have estimated the number of habitable planets to exist in the known universe to be roughly around the same as the number of grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth. So if there are that many habitable planets, my best guess is we're not the only life forms that exist. I would venture to guess there are a lot of other life forms. I would go as far as to assert that there are life forms that are more intelligent than us. If there are other life forms, there's probably a spectrum of life. I would go out of my way to say there are probably thousands of races that are much more evolved than us.
In the galaxy.
On
Earth.
I would say in our galaxy, there's probably dozens of races that are more advanced than us.
Okay. So in the universe,
It could be infinite because there are a couple options. One is that the universe goes on forever, so it'd be infinite. Another option is that it folds back on itself, much like when you sail around the Earth, you come back to the original point.
Yeah, like there's just one circle.
Yeah, that it's finite. And the same could be said of time. It's either infinite or it returns to a beginning and then repeats itself. But the universe, nevertheless, is like incredibly vast. So I would say that human beings are within, and I'm going to give a very moderate estimation, we're within 1,000 years of interstellar travel. And at the rate of technological progress, I would say, including artificial intelligence, we're probably within 100 or 200 years of interstellar travel. So if there are other races that are more advanced than we are, say there's a race that's 1 billion years more advanced than we are, it would be quite easy for them to travel to Earth. So that's my argument for the plausibility of extraterrestrials having visited Earth. Now here's where it gets weird. My belief... You know when you have an idea and you think, maybe I shouldn't tell people about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all have those ideas.
I'm asking for a friend.
I just want you to like me. So
Then you should just stop.
having gotten further into conspiracy theory, I'll get to my belief and then I'm going to have to substantiate it or justify it on some level. So basically, my contention is that our human beings, our race, came about through genetic manipulation, much like scientists today are manipulating genes for genetically modified organisms. They do it with corn and non-organic fruit.
But what human manipulated the first human?
That's the thing, is the entities doing the manipulation were not human. My belief is that 200,000 years ago, so this is millions of years after our planet was habitable, 200,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans were roaming the earth. My contention is that and it's based on the work of a guy named Sitchin, who studied and decoded Sumerian cuneiform for his whole career, for decades. And in the writing, he asserts that a race of extraterrestrials had come to Earth to harvest Earth for valuable minerals, predominantly gold and silver. And they were using gold and silver not in the form we know it today, but in monoatomic form. So a crystalline structure for a number of reasons. One of which is that gold apparently can only be created from supernova. It couldn't be created, it couldn't be manufactured synthetically. So you need to, in the universe, find certain elements that the universe creates and harvest them. So
Is money still based off of gold?
well, the United States doesn't work off a gold standard. In terms of the fractional reserve banking conspiracy, the United States actually doesn't have any currency that is not borrowed. We actually borrow. If you could look in your pocket, it says Federal Reserve Note.
Yeah.
That means that all the money that the United States has is owed to the Federal Reserve, which is a private organization owned
Federally private.
Well, it's not federal. It's more of
But it's the Federal Reserve.
It's called the Federal Reserve. It's not federal. It has shareholders, and it has no reserve. So it has
Yes, the Rothschilds.
Yep, the Rothschilds. In fact, just for the sake of clarity, I want to name, because people always wonder.
Yeah, throw these names out there so people know who they are on the streets, you fucking Rockefeller.
Yes, exactly. So when you say Bill Gates is the richest person on earth, you're sorely mistaken, because the money he has is in American currency. All American currency, U.S. currency, to be specific, is owed to the Federal Reserve. And the people the shareholders of the Federal Reserve are various families and institutions. In no particular order, the Goldman Sachs, the Rockefellers, the Lehmans.
Yeah, fuck them too.
The Kuhn Loebs. The primary shareholders are the Rothschilds. Warburgs are also involved out of Hamburg. The Lazards out of Paris. Israel Mosef Seif out of Rome. And also Jacob Schiff and James Tillman. The estimated net worth of the Rothschilds is upwards of $100 trillion. So my contention, which I was going to get to later, is that human beings are an engineered race of beings that are enslaved to this day due to the monetary situation. Because if we actually have technology that's suppressed, there is something called planned obsolescence, where they create products that fail intentionally, so it increases consumer base. So you buy a light bulb that lasts a year. They could easily manufacture light bulbs that would last forever.
Yeah.
So the Rothschilds, the people who own the Reserve Bank. So you're talking about the Federal Reserve is the Reserve Bank for the United States. Above them is the Bank of International Settlements. And they have no reserves. So basically, when the U.S. needs $100 billion for the military-industrial complex, they ask the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve goes through the Bank of International Settlements. They say yes, and then the Federal Reserve just digitally gives us a number that is just a number based on faith. There's no gold to back it up. So I've read multiple books on this. Whenever you hear the general public talking about the state of the economy, they are totally unaware of the fact that the truth is that our economy will always suffer because there is no way to not be in debt, because our country doesn't produce its own money. We borrow it. So all the money that exists is borrowed. If there was no debt, there would be no currency whatsoever. And the
Thank God for that.
Yeah, debt is great.
Yeah, I mean, why else? Why else would I be paying off this car?
So the Federal Reserve Act was voted on and passed while most of Congress was away on Christmas vacation the day before Christmas in December 2013. So it was, you can learn more about it from a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, where a bunch of bankers met secretly to create this to basically enslave humanity. But getting back to the extraterrestrials.
I actually had you had mentioned extraterrestrials coming here to mine for like gold and stuff. It's my understanding that we actually could create gold right now. It's just that it would be so expensive to build the type of technology we would need to do it that it's just not worth it to actually do it.
I don't have a background in chemistry to know for sure whether or not that's true.
Well, because it's just the amount of electrons. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've we're fairly deep into manipulating metals to create, steel, for example, and alloys. But monoatomic gold is what this supposed race, the name of the race, if you're, it was named through Sitchin, the guy who studied Sumerian cuneiform. They were called the Anunnaki.
Okay, I'm familiar with, yeah.
Yeah, and basically they came down here and they were originally harvesting minerals from the planet, and they didn't want to do this work, so they found primates who were genetically close enough to the race that was harvesting the minerals. So they did genetic experiments, and basically the primates that they used had 48 chromosomes. They fused 2 of them, so humans have 46 chromosomes, and then they spliced in various extraterrestrial genetics to make us intelligent enough, to make us have vocal cords and be able to communicate effectively. They created the most intelligent possible slave race to harvest minerals for them. When they finished harvesting these minerals that they needed, they left, and they left humanity to its own devices.
So, that is very interesting. So what you're saying is that they no longer have needs of our natural resources and minerals that they had us mine for them.
Yeah, the original creation of mankind became superfluous when whatever they needed, they had achieved.
We are the highest advanced intellect of any slave race, so we could be left
That's
to
what I
enslave
believe.
ourselves within our own intellects.
Well, I listen to a lot of conspiracy, and a lot of people believe that the human race is still actually guided by non-Earth dwelling entities. That
The lizard people.
Well, that's a David Icke thing. I don't know much about the reptilians.
It was just slang for Jewish people. David Icke was just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
horrible
he was-
anti-Semite.
I go to their bar mitzvahs all the time. The most convincing argument I've heard for it was from a guy named Robert Lazar.
Robert Lizard, yes.
No, Bob Lazar, the former Area 51 employee, correct?
Correct.
Ah.
And I think it was also various parts in Los Alamos. So Area 51 is usually what people know of because supposedly there was a crash landing there of a UFO where they recovered bodies from extraterrestrials. I don't know how to feel about that, but there's...
I like your use of the word supposedly.
Well, the reason I say supposedly is everybody in the conspiracy theory community is just like, yeah, well, one of the UFOs crashed. The reason I say supposedly is because I find it just baffling that a race beyond intelligent could manufacture a craft that can travel faster than the speed of light interdimensionally, and yet they would crash on Earth.
Hey, man, accidents happen, bro.
Yeah. Like, we came from Andromeda and then crashed into a tree. How stupid is that? So...
Listen, they don't know what our trees are like, so...
Yeah. No, that was the difficult part, was parking. They're graded in... They just can't parallel park, so they crash.
It's understandable.
I wish I remembered more specifically about things that Bob Lazar has said, but
Bob Lazar.
my issue is that he might have some things that sound really intriguing and compelling, but then he also has so many things that he's said that are just batshit crazy. That just sounds like somebody with schizophrenia telling stories. But one of my favorite things that he said is that when you work at places like Area 51, they'll employ somebody to dress up as the Easter Bunny and hang out by the coffee machine, and just weird things like that to happen. So
Sounds
that
like Google.
Well, so that when you tell the story, it sounds crazy, and you're like, yeah, there was this guy dressed as the Easter Bunny, and he was spanking a dude dressed as Madonna.
Bob.
And yeah,
That's the whole idea of disinformation. So they produce propaganda to make the subjects we're talking about now seem idiotic. So when I talk about 9/11 conspiracy theories, people are like, you're a moron. That it's disinformation. You think critically about it. And now the reason I have for believing that we're a genetically altered race of slaves, possibly intergalactic slaves, there's a very strong possibility that there are humans on other planets elsewhere. The reason I believe this is for a number of, there's a number of things that factor in here. First of all, let me clear it up. So they fuse chromosomes. So at that point, our genes were all Earth-based, but they spliced in, and this comes from confidential documents apparently Robert Lazar read that said the genes that we obtained from extraterrestrial beings were from the race called Zeta Reticula.
well, that's a star too, so that would be the star.
Well, Zeta Reticulans from...
Zeta
Yeah.
Reticuli. Yeah.
The
Those
reticula
are the
came
people
from
that abducted.
reticuli.
That's the people that abducted Betty and Barney.
Oh
Yeah.
It really changed my outlook. I completely believe, even when I look in the mirror, it's kind of bizarre. I just think, wow.
There is no explanation for our existence that isn't crazy. I don't care if you think it's random
Yeah, it's
chance,
so bizarre
a
that
deity.
any of this goes on.
Yeah, you could say it's random chance, a deity, an alien species, willpower itself. Like, there's no explanation that isn't batshit insane.
It also makes a lot more sense than like, oh, we all die and go to heaven and meet our family. Yeah, well, then why don't we keep our body? How would you recognize your mother in heaven if she's buried in the ground? Or
Your soul looks like your body.
yeah, or like all these fantastic claims religions have. Like the idea of judgment after, like, oh, I was stabbed to death, and the first thing that happens after is you get judged. How miserable is it? That doesn't seem
Worst American Idol
tangible.
ever.
But when I say, hey, there's probably intelligent life on other planets, there's evidence for it. There's intelligent life on our planet. So why? That's not far-fetched. Yeah. But the reason I believe we're a product of intervention, genetic intervention, is because for a number of reasons. One is we clearly don't fit well on this planet. Take away our houses, our air conditioning, heating, our clothes. Basically, the human being is ill-equipped. We're conspicuously ill-equipped to live on Earth. We don't fit well here. Even you say, well, if we didn't have shoes, every other animal fits here and would be able to thrive on their own, and they're less intelligent. We're thousands of times more intelligent than every other being on Earth, and yet we can't survive. And we wouldn't. If we were out on our own, within a year, you'd get a cut on the bottom of your foot that would get infected and you'd die. That would be the best scenario. I lived 8 months. If I were out in the wilderness, I would live like 2 weeks. I would die.
Now, let me play devil's advocate, too, also, that for the last few 100,000 years or whatever, we've been evolving in a man-made environment rather than evolving
Domestication.
Yeah, so like we're now becoming more suited to the environment which we're in, which is this fake environment of houses and shoes, as the Andalites call them, artificial hooves.
Domestication.
But at the same time, I'm with you. It's strikingly, that's what I was talking about earlier when I'm saying, like, we give birth prenatally. Like, babies aren't supposed to come out that early, but they have to, because if they didn't, their heads would be too big that they would kill their mother when they were born, because our brains
harm
are
themselves,
so big. Yeah, or kill themselves, yeah.
Well, there's two other points that kind of attest to the fact that something's clearly not right here. One of them is, and I don't know why this doesn't get brought up more often. This is something I've never heard anybody else say, but don't you find it conspicuous that humans are like 1 billion years more advanced than anything else on the planet. Every other animal has, like, dolphins have chimpanzees and dogs have cats. Human, like, are so much more advanced. Doesn't it seem bizarre that we're so much further ahead than any other being on the planet?
It is really weird. Then again, we don't know anything about whales and how whales think. I mean, I think at a certain point we think that we're more advanced
by our standards,
because we're more proficient tool users. And I mean that in a variety of ways, because I think that ideologies and modes of thought are tools. And so we're efficient tool users in the sense of, in the physical way, that we can build houses and machines and automobiles and the internet, but also tool users in a way that we can use the tool of projection and, like, thinking about the future and
but think
awareness,
of the
self-awareness.
Most inane bullshit that people do. Like, a dolphin or a whale couldn't set up a one-night stand. That's a pointless human attribute. But they can't plan for tomorrow. They're not
Dolphins don't have to set up one-night stands. They just rape whatever they want.
Oh, yeah,
they rape their trainer. They rape their trainers.
They're
Yeah.
Vikings.
No, but they can. That's the thing. And I think all the time we are finding that things which we think are unique to human consciousness, we're finding out are not. And animals experience them. And sometimes we're finding out even plants experience them. And I think sooner or later we'll find out even inanimate objects experience some of the same things we do.
There's also one other thing I wanted to bring up. There's an abrupt beginning to human civilization. There wasn't an evolutionary process. The first human recorded civilization immediately had religion, cosmology, agriculture, architecture, mathematics, astronomy, calendars, law, vehicles, wheels, sailboats, spears, irrigation, military, schooling, government, jails, courts, bureaucracy, and administration. You'd think that there'd be fossil records of that gradually happening, but it doesn't. It happened suddenly, which is why I suggest there was genetic information that humans arrived suddenly and we were just so much further advanced. There's no gradual evolution towards society. I mean, why would the first civilization have all the accoutrements that we still have today besides electricity? Doesn't that seem odd?
It does seem odd, and I can play devil's advocate, but at the end of the day, I do still agree with you. At the same time, it may be the human way of life. It may be the way our animal lives. Bees still live the way they did 200,000 years ago. But it is odd. I do absolutely agree with you.
Abstract thought came about extremely quickly, and there's a great divergence between using a stick to dig a hole and charging interest on fruit that you're loaning to a neighbor, you know? Like,
yeah.
It's totally...
Do we do that with our neighbors,
It's
though?
amateur godhood.
I don't know who you live next to, but I have an apple farmer right next door.
Yeah. It's like, I'll give you 6 apples.
I blow
if
them
you-
weekly.
Okay.
I do.
For every week late that you are on the Apple payments, you owe me an extra $5.
Yeah, it's and he's old. I call him Golden Delicious.
So he's the
I
premier
gotta
New
mine
York
him
Apple.
for his resources. Anyway, where my line gets drawn is with the specific mythology, and I don't want you to take offense to the word mythology. It is mythology that is not a statement about its credulity or its legitimacy, but the mythology associated with conspiracy theory and extraterrestrial conspiracy theory, the evidence for which seems to be lacking, and primarily from people that I think have schizophrenia. And the thing is, though, I also think that people with schizophrenia have insight into corners of reality that people without schizophrenia don't have. So
Yeah.
I don't just discount what they're saying because they're schizophrenic. They might
be another dimension.
But I also think that there might be areas in which maybe their critical thinking is suffering. And so
Well, the thing is, I think there is a body of people that are not mentally ill that believe in this. A leading pioneer in the
we should
field
get him on our
is
podcast.
Dr. Stephen Greer. He was an emergency room doctor, and he is the head of the Disclosure Project. He's in contact with the U.S. and Canadian governments. The Canadian government had a citizens' hearing on disclosure in which people got up and attested to the fact that the U.S. has contact with extraterrestrials. Now, this is a governing body who are all putting their entire career on the line, admitting that extraterrestrials exist and that they're Why would they do that? I hate being the guy I am believing this, and I wouldn't admit this to anybody. So any politician who has the competency to make it in politics and get elected and still goes out of their way to say this is true, there has to be some credence to it. It's not just schizophrenic.
Well, when I say the mythology, I mean like the specific races of aliens, the Anunnaki, the Nordics, the Greys, the Reptilians, the Insectoids, the tall Greys, the short Greys, the blue pig-faced doctors, and
You went through most of them. I was going to read the Pleiadians, Zeta
sure.
Reticuli, the tall whites.
The tall whites, yeah, I can't forget about them.
They're the ones in charge today.
Said.
Yeah, the
You said
reptilians,
the
sure.
Nordics too.
The
didn't
Nordics, yeah. And the specific events and the specific relationships, like it gets to a point where it's like, okay, like this is getting a little out of hand. I'm with you that something's amiss and something's weird, and it's definitely not scientific to write it off as crazy that there may be extraterrestrials afoot. But like, or by afoot, I mean historically.
At some point.
Historically.
My big issue with it is, and I think I have an answer for it, but I don't fully appreciate why the idea of believing in extraterrestrials is a crazy idea, but, Islam and Christianity isn't.
Yeah, it's the only reason it's a crazy idea is because there's no evidence for it. And so
well,
like
there
all
is,
the
though.
evidence
there is to the people who are criticizing it. I'm playing devil's advocate. Like, if your criticism of the idea is that there's no evidence, that doesn't make it crazy. That makes it unfounded. There's a distinct difference, Yeah,
I see what you're saying. I think the reason it's crazy is because I think that the people in charge call it the shadow government. That's a loaded term, I realize.
You mean Illuminati?
Well, I'm talking specifically about covert military operations. If you want to, I'll explain it. Here's a fun one that ties into 9/11. The military budget is astounding. And the evening news on September 10th, 2001, within 12 hours of the World Trade Center crashes, the evening news, Donald Rumsfeld got on the news and said, our government has lost $2.3 trillion.
Yes.
Facts.
Trillion dollars. You know what they did with $2.3 trillion? Reverse engineered crafts from extraterrestrials.
And isn't it like the office in the Pentagon that was responsible for like keeping track of that money was the office that was hit on 9/11 or whatever?
Yes, and it would have been enough to get our national debt under control. But it
everybody forgot that he said that.
Yeah, because the next day was 9/11.
Yeah.
Conveniently, they were like, we robbed you for all your money, and we're going to kill you tomorrow.
We robbed you for all your money. And, oh, God, what's that? Look out.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
Hey, no
Wait, what was that you said before? Oh, it doesn't matter anymore. We're dealing with tragedy.
we got to team together. America, right? Team America.
Yeah,
We're all
Let's who do we blame? What's the easy target?
brown people. Oh, wow. Dude. Wow, that was
Pay
not
no
rehearsed.
attention to the man behind the curtain. The concept of us being enslaved, it comes from the firm belief I have that we have technology that is being suppressed that would basically dissolve any energy pitfalls and shortcomings that we have being dependent on fossil fuels. We have technology that could create limitless energy and create agriculture for third world countries. And if our monetary situation were such that reserve banks weren't hoarding all the money, my firm belief is if we used all our monetary, fiscal, and technological and health resources that are actually available at our fingertips, I firmly believe we could have a 2-day work week and that everybody would be healthy.
Dude, totally.
Yeah. If everybody that was unsustainably rich.
I'm not talking about rich people. I'm talking about reserve bankers. Like Bill Gates can keep his money. I'm talking about the $100 trillion the
There's
Rothschilds
people that have a stake in this, and dude, they won't even let us.
The old money.
They won't even let
Yeah.
us download music and movies. Of course, they're not gonna. And we could easily support every human being on the planet. And like you said, a 2-day work week. One of my favorite things from reading Jurassic Park was like, hey, you know how many days we've shaved off the work week since the Industrial Revolution? None. It's
Yeah.
done us no good.
Yeah, in
people
fact,
still work.
we've increased the number of hours.
2 days off the
No,
work
like
week.
all that technology that's supposed to help us, it hasn't. We still work just as much. Like in fact, before
We
the
shouldn't
advent
have
of
to.
agriculture,
It
we
seems
worked
ridiculous.
less.
Yeah.
So I want to grill you a little bit about your extraterrestrial theories because I'm very familiar
I'm
with.
all game. I want hardball questions. So
I may not be on board with it all, but I'm very familiar with the mythology.
right,
And like
Chris
so,
Matthews
so
questions.
you think they're here for gold?
well, there's a couple camps. One is that the extraterrestrial presence on Earth has been here since before the dinosaurs. That's one camp. I don't know much about that belief, but the one Sitchin speaks about is the Anunnaki who were here to harvest gold. The Anunnaki, in my belief, used us as laborers, and I think they disappeared. And at this point, my belief is that there are other races of extraterrestrials, some of which live here on Earth, some of which live on our moon, which is supposed to be not
hollow.
Well, some people say it's hollow. I don't know anything about that, but
Okay,
there's
not that
supposed
kind
to
of
be.
conspiracy.
Well, our moon. It's said by a lot of conspiracy theorists that our moon is far too large to have happened organically. That it was placed there.
There's a lot of really weird shit about the moon. It's the only moon in our solar system that has like a fixed orbit or whatever. Like only the one side faces us. No other
Yeah.
moon in our solar system does that.
They say on the dark
Really?
side that there's extraterrestrial bases, and they say there's bases on one of the moons of Jupiter, and that there's bases on Mars. And I think all these are very possible.
The Jupiter one, maybe not. It might be a little too far out for us to reach personally. But if what you said was true about all the millions of dollars going into backtracing interstellar travel and other dimensions, maybe.
Yeah, if he's talking about
Yeah.
aliens, Jupiter ain't
yeah.
that far.
Ain't that
But
far off. Yeah.
I think if there are aliens that we're interacting with, it might not be spatial differences between us that were separating us. If you read a lot of like, or if you're just familiar with like Lovecraftian lore and like H.P. Lovecraft and the idea of these beings that are beyond it's popular right now. If you have an understanding of the Stephen King story, the creature that it wasn't a clown or a spider or whatever. It was some type of being that's not necessarily from this plane of existence, if you will.
Shape-shifting.
And not even, sure, to us a shapeshifter, but more like if you take you know how if you take a 3-dimensional object and place it onto a 2-dimensional plane, you'll only be able to see a slice of it. If you take a sphere, you're going to see a circle. If you take a cube, you'll see a square, or if you tilt it maybe a diamond or some type of trapezoid, depending on which way you're tilting the cube. But a two-dimensional would just be a slice of it. In the same way, if you take a four-dimensional object, which we have no perception for, but there is science and like computer simulations to try to, like hypercubes and stuff, and you put a four-dimensional object onto a three-dimensional plane, you're only seeing a slice of it. There are elements of that object that are not visible to you because of the dimensional. So like in that way,
well, yeah, that's the accountability for the multi-dimensional theory that there are interdimensional beings.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that makes more sense to me than something that built a spaceship and flew across the universe. It's more like something that doesn't necessarily come from the same universe as we do, in the sense that it is the same universe, but it's not the same way that we,
I would like
perceived differently.
I would like to address, I guess, one complaint that I'm sure somebody has that I've heard before is that the reality that other life forms, even if they do exist on other planets, could never make the leap to travel the vast distance between planets, because they're light years away, and light is supposedly the speed limit based on Einstein's theories. Basically, there are a lot of people who can attest to the fact that they build crafts that travel above the speed of light. They're called superluminal crafts that travel faster than the speed of light based on synthetic gravity they create themselves. We don't create synthetic gravity. Much like our Earth is a gravitational force, they have elements and compounds that create synthetic gravity that allow these crafts to move at unbelievable speeds and take right-angle turns at the speed of light, because they're creating a gravitational force within the craft. So when there's no G-force, when it turns, you still feel like you're sitting in the same place. So there's a lot of evidence for the possibility of superluminal travel. There's also some evidence of, I don't know much about this, but the possibility of interdimensional beings and basically their ability to travel through, and I'm not talking about wormholes, but basically transform their physical body into something less tangible and move without impediment.
And that's what I mean. To us, it would appear as if they are transforming and moving without impediment. But there are computer simulations you can find to see how four-dimensional objects would interact in three-dimensional space. And it appears as if they disappear and then reappear in and change shape. But really what's happening is the same thing that would happen is if you looked at a two-dimensional slice of you taking a block and a ball and throwing them across a table, but you were only looking at one two-dimensional slice of the activity. So as you saw the cube pass through that two-dimensional slice, you would just see a tiny, as the corner passed through, it would be a tiny little square, and then it would grow and grow and grow and get bigger, and then shrink back and get smaller as it
passed through.
Rolls through. You know what I mean? Because you're only seeing a slice of as it passed through
a
two-dimensional plane. It looks like it's disappearing and changing shape, but it's not. It's simply moving, and you're not equipped with the ocular ability to see its full form.
It's not unlike something as basic as radio waves. Like, they exist, but in here there's radio waves coming through, but we're not aware of them.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that we don't hear the songs going by our head doesn't...
Yeah, it could be Britney Spears in this room right now if we had something to pick it up. Who knows?
That signal was sent from somewhere to somewhere. And like if...
with good reason, I'm glad we don't have Britney Spears playing right now.
Yes, that would really get in the way of the podcast.
But... what I've found is I don't admit this to many people,
except for every one of our listeners.
Yeah, I would like
how many people. Well,
I would like to backpedal a little bit because this one's easy to fight against. It sounds insane. That's what I believe, and there's a lot of reason to believe that. I think we're too intelligent to have evolved on this planet alone. There should be other beings that are communicating and building very rudimentary civilizations of their own, using fire. There are no other, there should be...
Like, why haven't other animals?
Yeah,
also?
we should be closer. If we all landed on Earth, there should be, there's...
Well, you know which animals are. It's the ones that have learned to live alongside us. The cats, the dogs, the rats, the insects.
Domesticated ones, yeah.
Not even just domesticated, also rats and insects and stuff, and rodents and squirrels. Like, they've all learned to be like, all right, I can live in this human society.
The one
this
thing
suits me.
That's correct. The one thing I find surprising is I can outline in detail, if we go back to the 9/11 conspiracy, why it's the official story is incorrect, and I can tell somebody. What I find surprising is that people just don't seem to care afterwards. When I found out about Building 7 being a controlled demolition, which is very obvious if you just watch the footage of the building, it's clearly a controlled demolition. People don't seem to care. It changed my life.
To deny you your accuracy.
Who?
Well, like a lot of people will go through like, no, it's totally possible that they can melt this way. No. Have you ever seen they were built to collapse this way in case they were struck?
Well, that's the problem is people just skeptics, believers, gullible people, smart people, intelligent people. There's too much out there now. And so if you're like, I don't know if I buy this, all you have to do is Google and you'll find a debunking video that confirms that you were right to suspect you shouldn't buy it. But if you buy it, but the same thing is if you buy it, you'll find a conspiracy video that'll encourage you to consider you're right. It's
my belief though,
generally
is,
one will have terrible Photoshop though. Generally.
Firm belief is that if you have a 3-digit IQ, which is less than half of this country statistically, so when you meet somebody on the street, they have like a 98 IQ. I'm still baffled by that. But if
all right, easy. What are you, 106?
I'm 99, all right, so... No, if you have a 3-digit IQ, if you look at the footage from Building 7 collapsing and tell me that a fire brought that down, I would be astounded. Because all you have to do is watch it. It's a steel frame building, meaning there are I-beams that go straight up, vertical, and it falls straight down in the path of the I-beam when... Everybody, like from a young age, if you ever play Jenga or watch a fire, when something falls, a structure falls, it crumbles towards the weakness where the fire is. It never falls down on top of the debris below it. Watch the building fall. It falls at free fall speed directly down to where the I-beam should be in the way.
And that's,
all you have to do is watch it.
People are saying that they built them to collapse that way specifically in order to keep their fairy tale. The government didn't do this.
They built buildings to collapse due to fire into their own...
They took everything into account in the 70s.
That'd be like building a car with a body bag. Like you have a spare tire and a body bag.
Oh, I don't know about all of this talk, but all I do know is verified fact. Now... Trump Tower is the tallest tower in New York City.
Shit.
Coincidence?
Is it really?
Yeah, no, he was bragging after it got brought down about how before the attacks he was the second tallest and now he's the tallest.
Ladies and gentlemen, our president.
Da, 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 da. Clap, 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 clap. That's what matters. Things that matter. Things that matter. Things that matter. Things that matter.
Can we just loop that?
Yeah.
All right, so you talked about some of the main things that I guess if you want to call them normal conspiracy theorists, believe in the 9/11 truthers, the alien truthers. I'm not even going to get into things like Sandy Hook, but maybe some of the lesser known conspiracies. I want to ask you about, gauge your response on, see where you stand in the tinfoil hat wearing segment of the populace.
Well, let's do the major ones too. Like, why not? JFK.
Okay.
I hope it's hardcore tinfoil for me. Like, I hope you find me with like a shopping cart on teal.
Flat Earth.
Oh, flat Earth is bullshit.
Okay.
Flat Earth is bullshit. I'll tell you why. That one's easy. Just look up in the night sky. You notice how the shadows on the moon throughout the progression clearly illuminate a spherical orb. I would have to assume that ours is also spherical, just like the moon. And if I wasn't sure about it, I made a phone call. I've made many phone calls to my sister in Denver around 8 p.m. And I was like, is it still light there? And she'd be like, yes. And I'm like, well, it's dark here.
No, that's the rotating crane sun.
I was just making sure.
Yeah.
Flat.
Yeah,
She's
just
like, for
checking.
the third time this month, Dan, the Earth is not flat.
All right.
Go to bed.
I know it's irrational, but I still have to ask.
But I will say this. I would love for those people to be proven right. I would love for it to come out.
Oh my God! Could you imagine the paradigm shift?
Can you imagine?
I would,
Tila Tequila will be the new world leader.
oh my God, those idiots would be in charge. I told you the whole time my trailer park was the highest on earth.
Okay, moving on. Okay,
JFK.
JFK.
Oh, definitely not Lee Harvey Oswald. That's not possibility at all. I'll tell you why.
Okay, great.
The book depository was, I don't know the exact distance, but was remarkably far away from JFK's head, as it were. And JFK was hit twice. And even for the most avid marksman, to hit a moving target at a distance twice, that's moving in a car, is next to impossible.
Yeah, it's not like they're Hawkeye or Legolas.
And if you want to ask JFK, he defers all questions to the left side of Jackie's head.
My favorite.
Boo-hoo.
I don't know whether to boo or to applaud. This is.
You want to
that
hear
is the
something
mark.
even more conspiratorial? There's firm belief that he was actually killed because he wanted to disclose what he knew about extraterrestrial technology.
Yeah. Also,
I don't know
think
if
there
I
was-
believe that, though.
I think there was some nonsense about socialism in there about it not being truly evil. But either way, so you believe that our own government took care of him to keep him quiet?
Yes, I believe, and I also believe there were 7 shooters.
7.
7 shooters, and the one that the you know, the real, like the one that you would loop in a GIF, like the real hard shot that
Yeah,
he got, where
yeah.
that was where she flipped
The
out.
one you would loop at a GIF.
Yeah. Not the one where he slumped over and you're like, did he get hit? The one
No.
where you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, jeez. I
Let's
can't believe this
see
is
that
on
again.
video.
That one supposedly came from a sewer grate from under. So it wasn't from behind where the
So
boat...
it was like down and up.
Yeah, it was from a sewer grate that hit him on the right side of his cranium.
Yeah, I think there are way too many discrepancies in entrance and exit wounds to be one person in one room. That's my personal thought.
Also, since Lee Harvey was going to jail as a patsy anyway, if he really did it, crazies who kill presidents, he would have just been like, yeah, I killed him. I'm fucking dope.
Yeah, yeah. No,
I'm
you got
awesome.
caught. Don't sit there and say it wasn't me.
Yeah. I don't want to kill anybody, but if I shot a president, I would own up to that
Don't
immediately.
dodge the history books, dude.
Right.
You're going to jail. Like,
Yeah.
don't dodge.
You know what?
the
You're
fucking-
already infamous. Be fucking infamous.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just a patsy. That.
All right. So next one, President Obama. Well, I guess now just the whatever White House
President
administration.
Obama. He's still
Can they?
President Obama.
Do they have weather control machines?
Oh, yeah, I know for a fact they have weather
You didn't
control.
need to involve Obama in that. You could have just asked weather control.
Well, yeah, I actually...
For a fact.
There's several weather controlling technologies that exist that aren't conspiratorial.
So climate change is not real, is what you're saying, and that all these things are happening by our White House administration to prove that it is.
You're gonna put those
That's
words.
why-
You're gonna put those words in my mouth.
No, I guess not.
Now, I'll tell you, I think it's called HARP, right? Is the electromagnetic thing in Alaska?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been proven to affect weather. The ones that are more well known are seeding clouds to create precipitation. If you blast out micro frozen crystals in clouds, they create rain or snow. That's been used for a long time. That's
I've got to say, too, Craig's insistence on insinuating you're a climate change denier brings me to something that frustrates me.
Hey, I didn't say it. I just put 1 and 3 together.
Is the way that conspiracy theory and distrust of the government has been taken over by xenophobic racists lately and hardcore Christians, and like it's insane to me because there was a point where I was like, wait a minute, where did I miss the hold on, wait.
What's this have to do with weather control?
You insinuating that by him thinking that we may have control of the weather, that he's a climate change denier who thinks that it's the liberals' agenda to push climate change on people.
Well, there are a lot of liberal haters.
But what I'm trying to say is that at some point, conspiracy theory stopped being a punk rock for the people thing and started being this like very xenophobic religious thing that's like
it's all about narrative, Nathan.
And
with climate change in particular.
I remember feeling like the rug was pulled out under my feet and being like, yeah, I don't like big government. Wait, hold on. No, wait, I'm not with you. Wait, what's going on here? I don't know what's going on here.
Super confused?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with regard, I'll say this: I do believe in chemtrails.
Okay, I won't ask that question then.
Oh, all right. Chemtrails, I believe in. I saw a documentary online that was pretty well done that tested soil samples from around the globe, and the one that convinced me was an organic farm in Hawaii had collected soil samples since the advent of the farm in the 40s or something, or 50s. And the soil started containing poisonous amounts of metals in it around the time that the farmers and the owners of their organic farms started seeing chemtrails. And the way you can tell the difference is that when you watch a plane fly overhead, it leaves a trail that evaporates, within like 5 or 6 plane lengths of where the plane is.
Yeah, like a difference between that and skywriting.
Yeah, yes. It's like, chemtrails look like skywriting, except they're not writing anything. They're just killing people.
they're just murdering humans.
What about the moon landing?
I'll say that I don't know if the moon landing occurred or not. I will say something that would imply that I believe it wasn't true is that I've looked at the footage. If you look at all the footage of them interacting on the moon, there are 2 occurrences where their actions don't correlate with the natural occurrence of gravity. There are 2 things that would require like ropes or something for them to do it. One is
to make it seem like it was in an anti-gravity area.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand the moon has less gravity, so you jump higher and you float longer. But basically, one's pretty easy to explain. When you watch somebody jump, they pivot off the ball and the toes of their feet. They press down, their calf muscles flex, and so they press off, and the balls of their feet are the last thing to touch the ground. It creates a lift. On the footage of the moon landing, I don't know if it was Buzz or Neil, he jumps like 7 or 8 times, and he pivots off the ball of his foot like a normal jump, and then once he's lifted off his feet without pressing off the ball of his foot, and then he accidentally presses after he's been lifted off the ground. So try jumping without
Right.
without jumping off the ball of your feet. It's impossible. If you watch the tape, that happens.
Oh, okay. So, Hitler, is he alive?
No, I don't think so. I don't know much about that one. I do believe he has a son that is alive that looks a lot like him. And he has family in Florida. That's true.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's gotta suck.
I don't know. I think they went on to Ancestry.com and found out they were Jewish.
Oh.
And we
Brutal.
never heard from them again.
Yeah. They were like, wow, we happen to be Jewish. Dad would have hated us.
Mein secret, it is out.
Hitler. I mean, he was arguably the most powerful man on earth at the time. I mean, I guess there is a possibility that he survived. Nathan, what do you think? You think he might have survived?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to know for sure. I know there's conspiracy theories that he went to Argentina and there's like somebody that
Took
did
a
all this
random
research.
photograph in the 80s, right? Of like
Yeah,
somebody
right.
that looked like him.
Sure, I'm Hitler. I'm hiding. Go ahead, take a picture of me.
Yeah,
you know what?
like-
yeah. Fuck, I don't
Go
believe
take
that.
my picture.
He became a pot-smoking organic farmer in Argentina.
Yeah, that's more likely than him killing himself in his
Well,
bunker.
you do know that the U.S. government, talking about conspiracies, smuggled out German scientists through Operation Paperclip.
Oh, was
So
it to
Nazi-
save stuff about Ragnarok?
Fraggle Rock?
Ragnarok, no. It was some evil magic nonsense about opening portals to other dimensions.
No, they used Nazi scientists. People that should have been part of the Nuremberg trials came to the U.S.
Yeah, we split them up. Like England got some, America got some,
Yeah,
France
yeah.
got
You're,
some.
you're
some
like
shit.
our scientist slaves that
We
will just
traded them like
And that
Pokemon
was
cards.
that is a legit conspiracy that we didn't mind the Nazis as long as they had technology.
Hillary Clinton, the one we know now, body double.
Oh God.
Oh, body double.
Yeah. She died really when she had that one coughing fit during the campaign.
I will say that the most recent presidential election was the weirdest thing I've experienced in the sense that close to the end of the summer, everybody was like, I don't like either of these. And we're all like, it's too late. It's too late. And I'm like, it's still like 5 months away.
Right.
We should do something. And
It's
everybody's
too late. No.
It's too late. It was
We have
like,
two choices.
my feeling was like, it was like if you got a babysitter and he came over and you were like, okay, here's my cell phone. It's on the fridge. Here's hers. Is that an erection? Dude, we already have tickets to the movie. I guess
It's too late to cancel.
I guess the kids are going to be destroyed.
For
it's
life.
too
'cause
late.
I mean, what am I going to do? Eat the cost of these movie tickets?
If that election was sex, 130 million people would be in prison right now. Nobody wanted that. That's what I feel about Hillary.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, no, it might have just been the fact that one party was so out of touch that they thought that no matter who they put up against Trump, that they would win because, I mean, come on, it's Donald Trump.
Well, were you guys as surprised as I was at the outcome now?
No.
Really?
No, not at all. I 100% thought that this was all staged as a way to make everybody think that Hillary was going to
Oh,
win.
so who's
just
the
to lull
real
them into a sense
conspiracy?
of safety. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm the crazy guy.
Yeah.
So, Craig, what's the verdict? Has he made a believer out of you? What do you think? What are your thoughts on ancient aliens?
It's possible, but it's far from likely for me.
My thoughts on this stuff is complex, but yeah, I mean, honestly, Zechariah Stitchin, like I said, when I was a kid, I read all those Eric Von Daniken,
Yeah.
Zechariah Stitchin books, and nowadays I kind of put them on the same level as like Michael Moore, which is to say, like when I was a teenager.
Sensationalist.
Yeah, and like Michael Moore, I loved his movies as a teenager, and I read his books and everything, and I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Preach, brother.
Yeah,
And
I'm going to go bowling at Columbine now.
Michael Moore made me do it. And as I got older and I learned more about him and his stuff, it became obvious that he was, I don't want to say just as guilty, but just as guilty as misrepresenting the facts and as the people that he was trying to take down.
Right.
And-
right. It's almost like it's like you're doing the bad thing by trying to prove that they're doing a bad thing.
I still side with a lot of his points, which makes it all the more frustrating that it's like, dude, shut the fuck up if you're gonna.
Well, yeah,
don't
'cause you're
hurt
like,
the argument.
Yeah, you're hurting the argument by making it not the truth.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, because the truth is legitimate enough. It's just not sexy enough. Listen to us, CNN. And do that.
That's my problem with people like Zechariah Stitchin, is that his claims to have like translated these Sumerian cuneiform, and no disrespect to Dan McCort or anybody else listening that's into these theories, because I think he was onto something, but then he makes these over-exaggerated claims that get refuted once they're subjected to peer review, which is, I know, like, granted, if there were aliens running the Earth, running peer review would be nothing for them. I'm sure they could fucking figure out a way to make sure these dumb monkeys on this rock refute claims that they don't want them to. So yes, I will also play the devil's advocate to my own statement, but he's just like, so much of his research is bunk. And that
it's bupkis, I tell you.
I get it, because you want to sell books, you want to make sensationalist claims like you have proof of this shit, and you want to make people go, "Oh my god, what?"
Yeah.
What, when they read it. So like, you don't want like, "Hey, isn't this an interesting theory with some thought behind it?"
People are more easily rejecting of it if it's not so. This is for real.
Yeah. So I don't know. The idea that we were somehow engineered, as I said in the podcast, is it's a fun idea for me, and not just fun like as in like, oh yeah, the Loch Ness Monster is a fun idea. Sure, it is. A dinosaur living in the lake is fun, but it's bullshit.
Super
fun. Not in
fun.
that way, but in like, yes, it is very interesting to entertain the idea that we may have been engineered, but I don't know if I can totally get behind the
It sounds
Anunnaki
very
myth.
Ridley Scottish.
And I don't say this to undermine our guest, because I think he has some really interesting things to say that were worth our listeners hearing. I want people to be, when they read books by people like Zechariah Stitchin, to be cautious.
I gotta say, I'm a little more surprised that in the way he did approach it was a very educated way. He had a lot of evidence, so-called. But, you know, he was backing things up that he was saying with reasons and theories.
Yeah, and that's, which is to say, I scrutinize them in the same way that I scrutinize Michael Moore. So if you're like, yeah, but George Bush was totally, I'm like, no, I'm on board. George Bush kind of sucked. I'm saying,
you just can't say that he hates black people outright like that, because he didn't say that.
I know, Michael Moore, honestly, it's not your place.
Michael Moore, stop it.
It's like, no, what I'm saying is Michael Moore's claims that like this one specific bill said this thing are flat out lies. And it didn't say that. And it's the same thing with these guys with like, no, you know what? I'm kind of on board that it's really weird that like all our ancient cultures have these types of tropes that show up about these visitors from above. And I also think it's really weird how out of place we are with all of biological history before us, you know? And I'm totally on board with a lot of this. I'm just saying that, you know, to make his point less arguable, he made some shit up, I think.
So that's what you think of Dan did? Or that's what you think Zechariah did?
That's what I think Zechariah Stitchin did, not what I think Dan McCort did. Dan McCort is clearly thinking and using logic and reading and researching, and we can come to different conclusions about the same thing and still respect each other's opinion.
And that's why science is fun.
So, if you enjoyed that, I really hope you go check out the other episode with Dan McCort.
Yeah, 91, Fish episode.
Of Fair Point Podcast, not Fair Enough Podcast.
Oh, yeah, the other one.
Fair Point Podcast is our main show. That show, we like do serious research before each episode. Sometimes we do radio plays.
Do you think they don't know?
It's a much more, they might
well,
not.
now you know.
Now they know. That's the whole fucking point of me saying this was what?
Just go on. Just
was
get,
that I
get
think
it
they
over
might
with.
not know.
I just try to spice things up a little bit, you know, have some fun with it. You know what I'm saying?
It was a lot of fun, even if you don't like the band Fish. Me and Craig aren't really fans of the band Fish either.
But I love stories about drug trips.
Hey, Dan McCort, fuck everything you stand for. Come back sometime.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It was a lot of fun, in all sincerity. And we really do hope you come back sometime. And we hope that you listeners come back sometime, too. You may have noticed that Fair Enough and Fair Point have been a little slow to release lately. It's not the first time we've said that. But we're still working on it, and it's... Just wait.
Yeah, it's going to be worth it.
Just wait. Just wait. There's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon.
Just keep your eyes on our Facebook, Fair Point Podcast.
Fair Point Podcast. And don't forget, it's Fair Point Podcast. That's the main show. So it's at Fair Point Pod, not Fair Enough.
Yep, not at Fair Enough Pod. Not that.
Fair Point Podcast.
Fair Point Pod.
Just subscribe, and then you don't have to worry about sorting it out.
Exactly.
Give us a star rating on iTunes if you listen on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you can leave us a rating. Please do. I can't stress the importance of that enough.
Yeah, reviews are welcome too, as long as they're above a 1 star.
We'll read them. If you give us good reviews, we'll read them on the podcast.
And if you give us really bad reviews, we'll read them too and
we
mock
won't.
you.
We will not read them. We will ignore them. We'll still mock you, but we'll find ways to do it. We'll look up like your significant other, and your boss.
We'll look up their significant other and find a way to like poison them with the Murakubu virus.
No, poison them with thoughts, with negative thoughts about their friend.
Voodoo dolls.
They'll be like, "Yeah, you're right. This guy is a piece of shit."
I
don't really want to hang out with them. And Dan's like, "I'm sorry I left you guys a bad review." Jesus.
Come on, Dan. We plugged your shit.
Have you ever noticed Dan kind of sounds like Jeff Goldblum if you close your eyes and squint really hard?
Yeah, no, I could see it. I mean, I can't see it, but I can hear it. He doesn't look like Jeff Goldblum.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have thoughts about the Anunnaki, the 12th planet, Zechariah Stitchin, the Federal Reserve, JFK, the moon landing,
Harp.
Bohemian Grove, HARP,
all the above,
or Katy Perry's new music video, please.
Or Taylor Swift's new music video.
Oh, yeah. Please hit me up on Twitter, and we'll talk about Taylor Swift.
Oh, wait. No, please don't do that, actually.
I'll field the Taylor Swift responses.
Okay,
on
we'll sort it.
Twitter.
We'll sort out the riff-raff from the snip-snap.
We'll sort out the riff from the raff.
Yes.
And if you have thoughts on Riff Raff, that's the rapper with tattoos on his face.
Is that a real rapper? No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
He's the white guy with cornrows, tattoos on his face.
Oh,
fronts,
no.
And really, really awful rhymes.
Blood Brothers with Bow Wow?
Lil Bow Wow? The same?
No, Bow Wow is adult
The
Bow
artist
Wow.
formerly known as Lil Bow Wow.
Which is now just known
Big
as Bow Wow.
I'm Big Bow Wow now.
BBW.
I was Lil Bow Wow, then I was Bow Wow for a while, and now I'm Big Bow.
No, Big Bow Wow. BBW. Big Bow Wow. You heard.
Friends call me B Diddy.
Big Bow is good too. And then in a few years it'll be Senior Bow.
If you're a fan of Lil Bow Wow, I urge you, please go check out my Pokemon-centered podcast, Silph Radio. It's called Silph Radio, SILPH. Silph Radio, the original, the one and formerly only.
I can't wait till Silph Radio gets so many reviews saying, hey, this has nothing to do with Bow Wow.
It also has nothing to do with this Pokemon Go thing going around. So please help us get our Silph Radio back on the map. Help us get our Google results back.
Yeah.
Not in any negative way. Do it by giving us all the positive vibes you can. Leave good reviews.
Discuss with us on the subreddit, the Silph Radio subreddit on Reddit.
If you have a blog, share it on your blog. And yes, please go to the subreddit. And
our Silph Radio.
Share your blog in our subreddit. If it's Pokemon centered, if it doesn't have anything to do with Pokemon, don't. Or if it's something that we brought up, like, please plug your shit in our subreddit. We'd be glad to, so long as it's relevant. And please,
yeah, because we know the moderators personally, and they keep that shit covered hardcore.
Join the conversation and keep in contact with us. We like knowing you're listening, and we would love to share in your experience of listening.
I would have to say, for the most part, we like you.
Yeah.
You haven't done nothing wrong to us yet.
Except for that one listener. You know who you are. You know what you did.
Last summer.
I heard what you said.
Last summer.
Until next time. That was Dan McCort.
I'm Craig Lewis.
And I'm Nathan Kay.
Keep your eyes in the skies.
I'm sorry, I have to piss so bad.
Yeah, it's fine.
Actually, if you want, you can just keep going and I'll just listen.
So,
He changed his mind.
yeah.
There is way too much that, I mean, I used to be the type of person that said, yeah, no, listen, it was a terrorist attack. It was a terrorist attack. It was a terrorist attack. And the more information that piles up, I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, and then this happened? Oh, okay, yeah, no, that lots
Well,
of
where do you
convenience to just be a terrorist attack.
Where do you stand on the 9/11 issue now?
Oh, I totally, yeah, no, there's no way around saying that Donald Rumsfeld didn't say we lost all this money. You know,
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that you tied it to alien. So the reason why we lost the money is because we put it into alien technology.
Yeah.
That's where the connection comes from.
Yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
believe it was siphoned.
That is a new thing for me to hear.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not discrediting you, and I totally
There's a lot
think
of
that you can come up with an easily excusable reason why your side, why what you just said is true. You know.
Yeah.
There's too much information that can tie things together.
There's a lot of conspiracy that.
There's an awful lot of clean breaks and steel beams. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. There's a lot of conspiracy that seems to be intertwined, but yeah, it seems as though the military budget was reverse engineering extraterrestrial crafts to figure out how to use their own. And here's one that's pretty interesting. A lot of people in the tinfoil hat community tend to think that there's going to be a staged extraterrestrial attack that will really be like Lockheed Martin and U.S. entities who have created their own UFOs, and they're going to stage a false flag attack. It's really going to be people in UFOs and to create a one world government or something.
My God. Alan Moore was right, and the only people that know are the ones that read The Watchmen instead of watching the movie.
Yeah, but it's not going to make me any less crazy. It's not like all my friends are going to be like, you told me about this. What's next?
Yeah, no. It's not going to happen.
I'm going to be like, I told you. And they're like, well, yeah, you didn't know.
Yeah.
The New York Times said it. I was like, I said it 8 years ago.
No. Conspiracy theorists never get that moment of vindication.
No, we're too busy living with our parents.
For real. Looking things up on the internet, not paying attention to what other humans say.
I've read like 8 books on fractional reserve banking, and my bank account is $25. And it's like, what an
A Rothschild you are not.
Yeah.
You need to get acquainted with Mammon, and then maybe, just maybe, you can get into their game.
I haven't heard of it.
It's more so just a comic story, honestly. I don't know if it's a legit conspiracy theory with Steam, but it's basically all the rich people in the world, the Rothschilds, some Russian dudes, they get together and they sacrifice somebody within their community every so many years to satiate the need of the god Mammon so our economy can bloom.
I see. Quick question. Before we go into the conspiracy thing, can I eat a Cliff Bar?
We'll take a quick break. Let me actually stop and save this. So I can stop now.
Take life in the morning?
Yeah.
Any life. Like other people or like rickety chairs.
Oh, yeah.
Everything pisses me off.
It was like when I turned 29, I discovered what life was like before 11 a.m. regular.
Oh, yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, like sober people around, like, top of the morning. I'm like, how the fuck do you live this way?
Dude, last week, this past Sunday, we had halfway to St. Patty's Day, and I was like, oh god, this is pathetically sad. By the way, didn't you know that the snakes were actually Irish slaves? We're celebrating the slavery of the poor. But no, fine, it's okay. Just get a Jameson shot girl to come around, shake her tatas, and everything's okay. Drinks
Works out just fine, yeah.
Hey, drinking is drinking, you know?
Yeah.
We're Irish, so what else are we gonna do?
I did a decade of it. Blacked out from 20 to 30.
It's a good thing you're.
Yeah, what's the best of my ability? I'll black out some of it. It's still patchy.
So the live stand-up that you did, Audible Toxicology, the video special. That's what the kids are calling them, right?
Apparent
Video specials. What do you call it?
Motion picture. Ansel Adams.
Yeah, that part with the train really
Yeah.
scared us.
A recording that wasn't an iPhone.
Yeah, a digital flip book.
Okay.
But I would like to talk about your new audio CD, Humor Trafficking, which phenomenal title.
Wait, audio CD? Who do you think you are, Mitch Hedberg?
That's what the kids are calling it.
That's what the kids are calling it these days. Audio CDs in no way or form are going away in 2017.
You want to know the funny thing about the CD being only audio? We had originally intended to film it to submit to different digital platforms, ideally Netflix. So we scheduled the date in Syracuse, not far from where your studio is here at the Palace Theater. So we had the date booked, and then a month after we booked the date, Dave Chappelle decided to book a day in Syracuse that same
dick.
night.
Fucker.
Is
Yeah.
that the...
Oh my god.
So wait-
Dave Chappelle is the reason why you did
He's the reason why I still live with my parents.
Is that the
He
show he talks about in the new Netflix special?
Yeah, that's
okay.
the show that canceled my recording.
Oh, man.
So I had to wait roughly a year to record Humor
Well, I hope you're
Trafficking.
happy, Dave Chappelle. Your stand-up was excellent, I swear to God. But, like, I
Yeah.
hope you're happy. You were already rich.
Yeah, if anybody knows him, please have him contact me because I have some strong words.
And I would like to get him on this podcast to explain himself.
Yeah, easily. And maybe I could talk to him at one of his shows, like a huge venue. and do a spot,
It's just funny because it's like
And we can talk after the show.
we could talk after the show. And
he was a presenter at the Emmys. He's better than Syracuse.
better in Syracuse, yeah. He, no, I love Dave Chappelle, great comedian, but I like his intonation. He has a very remarkable voice. If you were to do voiceovers for cartoons or, like Geico commercials, I'd immediately pick up his voice. Oh, that's Dave Chappelle.
Which is why he couldn't ever do that.
Yeah.
Unless it was like, unless it was the Dave Chappelle Show, the animated
I
series.
think there are more pertinent reasons Dave Chappelle could never do voiceovers for cartoons.
I know. If he didn't do his own show because of like political reasons in the industry, I don't think he's going to be in commercials.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But I'm thinking of like Happy the Bear is Dave Chappelle, and everybody's like, that's not Happy. That's clearly Dave Chappelle being Happy the Bear. Distinct voice, you know it's him.
I guess on that point, it would be surprising to see him have some versatility. To see him have like a strong Irish accent or something.
Or even like for a children's series, like, hey, oh my God, I'm Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, never do that voice again.
Well, I mean, it would be Dave Chappelle doing it, so
I'm
clearly it would be
gonna
better.
have to edit that, man.
But it would be better because it's Dave.
So, humor trafficking, though, I gotta say, I fucking love it. I loved Audible Toxicology, but there's something about humor trafficking that the writing in it, like, as you actually mentioned in the stand-up, you are incredibly literate, and it's, as a fan of the art and construction of writing, expertly constructed jokes. I love it.
Nathan, put that away. It's growing.
Yeah, that's a different show. That's for Howard Stern.
We're just happy it's on
That's
audio.
why we went audio only.
Yeah, just like my album.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to mention we did audio only for budget reasons. I was financing the whole special and doing another video special. Audible Toxicology from 2013, I saved up to do video. And this one, it seemed, would be best on just audio because I'd be able to potentially sell it to record labels.
Yeah, that would probably give you a better chance to get this out to the masses, as opposed to you could get a way better audio quality production for something that people are really only going to be hearing if you're just doing audio and not focusing on the video aspect.
It's also a much smaller liability for record labels to pick up an audio CD than for digital aggregators to pick up a movie. It's less of a financial risk.
Yeah.
That
makes sense.
So I thought the potential was bigger. This album, Humor Trafficking, was kind of a big divergence from my first album. And you guys having heard both of them, I was actually surprised to hear, Nathan, that you like this one better because I can't be objective about my own work. So I'm not sure which one was better. So I was a little uncomfortable going into it because the preparation for Humor Trafficking was much different than Audible Toxicology. The first special, I had a lot of stage time. I was headlining venues, and I was traveling. I was doing shows in Florida, and headlining Wise Guys. I was on stage like 3 or 4 hours a week. And then my booking agent moved, and Wise Guys shut down. So in the interim,
Thanks,
between,
Obama.
yeah. I actually blame Trump too for the reason.
Let's just blame the government. Let's just get that out of the way.
We have the whole podcast to do that.
Yeah, we'll get into that, I'm sure. Going into the special, it was a lot of. It was different. I feel like as a comedian, I develop a lot more doing longer sets. For me, I feel like it's much more beneficial to do a 45-minute set than 6 10-minute sets, which would be an hour.
I can absolutely agree with that. We do podcasts, and I mean, it's a pain in the ass when you tell your friends, like, yeah, I do podcasts, and you're like, oh, show me something. And it's like, I don't know, you gotta like listen for like an hour, but
Those people, I cannot stand those people. They're like, oh, you podcast? Start being a radio guy now. Yeah,
Yeah, if it was that easy, we
But,
would
like,
have been called by
Can you
107.9.
sing Justin Timberlake? That's not what we do.
but yeah, being funny.
What I do is a little more technical than what a DJ does.
There's a little more integrity than.
But yeah, being funny in 6 to 10 minutes is way different than being funny in an hour's time. And I mean, on that same note, I can find 6 to 10 minute clips of your stand-up to show people that is hilarious. They don't have to listen to the whole thing. But you have so much more freedom and opportunity to make people laugh and artistic license in how you like craft your jokes in the show with more time.
Yeah, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. The big difference was, as I said earlier, the reduction in stage time meant that a lot of, the 2 years leading up to recording this album, most of the shows that I was doing were 10-minute spots or 15-minute spots. So I wasn't entirely, I was still headlining here and there, but I wasn't entirely sure how the album would work as like an entire unit. If I could grab them and maintain, and if it had all the dynamics and diversity of joke styles that would warrant in like an hour. And I spent a lot more time kind of rehearsing at home. People, for some reason, I think people always assume comedians rehearse in front of the mirror, but I do it like while I'm cleaning the house. I'll go over my lines because it's like multitasking. It's hard
Yeah,
to...
it's as if people just assume that you need to know what you look like because all comedians are narcissists.
Well, yeah, most are.
Yeah.
The thing is,
So that's
I
why
know,
they do.
Like when I rehearse, I don't go in front of the mirror, but when I masturbate, that's a different story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and where these comedians rehearse in front of the mirror and masturbate in shame. You do the inverse.
I do the that's what stands me apart, and I think ultimately that's where my success lies, in my
Proud of the masturbation.
masturbatory habits.
Well, listen, if all the women knew about them, you wouldn't be able to stay single, brother.
Yeah.
Really good at it.
I'm great at myself. Let's see if you can top me.
I was gonna say, so I felt like this recent album was a lot more. It seemed to be a lot more my voice than the first album, because the first album we recorded, I was like 8 or 9 years into. I kind of had a distinct voice as to who I was, but there were still big influences that impacted my writing. I think I mentioned Doug Stanhope, who is a very subversive, cynical, really dark, gallows humor style comedian. And you could see that influence in Audible Toxicology, like making fun of inappropriate things or things that make people uneasy. Whereas this one, while it still has some subversive elements, the approach was a little different.
It's more accessible, certainly, but not in a way that undercuts the edginess, if you'll forgive that awful word, edginess. But
It's already too late. But I do have to say, it makes sense because as I was listening to Humor Trafficking, I noted that it almost felt like you were more comfortable in what you were saying as if you were coming from yourself as opposed to coming from inspiration from somewhere else in Audible Toxicology.
Yeah, it came off that way for a number of reasons. In the interim between the two specials, not to use that phrase too many times, but
Specials or interim or between?
not to use the word the.
Between. I just learned that word the other day, and I've just been using it a lot.
It's like,
Yeah, I'm overusing it to memorize it. Between. No, I started doing some ghostwriting for other comedians. So I spent a lot of time doing writing for other comedians and instructing other comedians on some level. And it's not something I generally promote. I wanted to stay away from the industry end of things. I never wanted to get into like production or teaching or anything like that. It's just I live on comedy and I need a supplementary income. So having written for other people and having taught some stand-up skills to people, I ended up writing a book that we spoke about that is called Sobering Stand-Up. And a lot of it's semi-autobiographical, but it also outlines a lot of original ideas that came to me over the years of doing stand-up. And I found that the ideas that I express in the book are very true to the way I developed the material for humor trafficking.
nice.
Yeah, they overlap.
So I got to ask you, is this book maybe be accessible to young, promising, upcoming stand-ups that might want to read it for insight into the field?
Yeah, yes, it would work for that. The book was basically focused on one thing. Having done stand-up for a long period of time and read a number of books, a body of work on stand-up from like contemporary literature about stand-up. There's a lot of books about how to do stand-up or how to write jokes and joke structures. Just the goal of my book was to write everything that I know about stand-up that I found conspicuously absent from the prevailing literature. So in the book, I explicitly state I recommend reading other books, but this book it focuses on things you won't hear anywhere else.
So basically, get your basic textbooks on doing stand-up, and then this is for the things that they won't tell you in those books.
Yeah, that took a while for me to figure out.
But is the book also...
You're welcome.
Is the book also a work of comedy itself? It's not just instructional. It's funny, right? It's going to make me laugh, right?
No, it's mostly
No.
instructional. It's
Okay.
mostly...
I shouldn't have led with that
right, guys.
question.
Yeah.
And I should have just asked the question straight
So
up.
Yeah,
as
you
soon
were like, the book is good. I was like, no, it's not.
it's
It's actually pretty poor.
basically is one of those things where once you start teaching your improv class, it'll be mandatory to purchase.
Yeah. When I fail as a comedian and decide to teach, I'm going to force young people to buy my book.
Just pull an Andy
there is humor in the book. Like, I outline certain jokes and how I came about writing those jokes. So
it's more of a behind-the-curtain thing.
yeah. It's for comedians who want to learn how to do comedy. It discusses. It has a heavy psychological hint to it because my background is in behavioral science. So I discuss in detail the relationship between the comedian and the audience. And I analyzed something I originally heard from Jerry Seinfeld, that stand-up comedy is a dialogue, it's not a monologue. It's like the laughter from the audience is as important as the words you say. Because if you're just speaking to them and they're not laughing, it's not comedy, it's a monologue. So I discuss how to relate to audiences, how to deal with dead audiences, how to follow strong comedians, how to do crowd work,
But would you say that the difference between a monologue and stand-up is very subtle, though, still? It almost feels like a monologue is just a shorter version of a stand-up special.
I would say, in my opinion, not to discount professional monologuists.
Well, that would be like Late Show, like with Colbert or something like that. Or just,
Oh, yeah.
Like those late night talk show hosts always do the opening
Where they're
monologue.
basically
Well,
just rehearsing
that's not
jokes,
really-
wait for the laugh or here's the next joke.
On some level, that's kind of like stand-up because there is an audience response, but there is also a light in the theater that says applaud and laugh.
Yeah.
But
I mean, what other country would we be if we didn't have to tell people when it was appropriate to laugh?
The
Yeah.
audience doesn't need to be heckling you for you to bounce off the audience and work with the audience in a manner that is similar to a dialogue that two people might have. Like,
yeah.
and that's great.
Actually, on a side note, speaking of heckling, for humor trafficking,
On a side note, speaking of heckling, you guys suck.
I haven't enjoyed any of your input. I'll take it from here.
All right, heard it.
Speaking of-
Nathan, let's go get a beer. He's got this.
Speaking of heckling, my family never comes out to my stand-up shows, and I casually mentioned the recording, and like a week later, I was at my parents' house for dinner, and my parents were like, my mom was like, "We're coming," and I was like, "Well, I don't know," and she's like, "It's too late. I've decided to go." So I had to edit out a number of things that I didn't want her to know, like
About your life?
yeah, about my life. Making fun of certain family members was one of them. One was about having sold some kid narcotics.
Oh, yeah, that's stuff you don't want mama to know.
Yeah,
Like,
it would
even-
just be weird for her to be sitting in the audience and like, so I,
Yeah, as long as she's not
So
best
hot.
friend mom and mom.
yeah. It's an uncomfortable thing. It's like, you know, getting walked in on while you're jerking off.
Yeah, it's like telling your grandmother that you do drugs. You don't want to really open up to that.
I mean, unless she's
While
gonna,
jerking off, yeah.
well, unless she's gonna offer some
It's different,
OxyContin, like, oh, shit, my back feels fine. Snort these. No, actually, the only person who heckled me in the whole album was my mother. She heckled me. and
Bravo, Mrs. McCort.
It's like I've been doing stand-up a little over 12 years. They've seen like 2 shows, and she heckled me. And since I knew this was going to go onto iTunes, Amazon, and Spotify, I couldn't acknowledge her as I couldn't be like, Mom, you know, because it sounds totally unprofessional as a comedian to be like, Mom, what do you do? So
Come on, Mom. Just shut up and listen.
This is going to be on iTunes as well. I love
it
this.
was ridiculous. I did this like mental calisthenics thing where I compartmentalized my relationship with my mother and just treated her as like an asshole that I didn't know. So
Dumb move, Mom. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have spoke up, Ma.
I
No, hold on,
shot her
Mike.
down.
My question is, how did you turn that off? I'm asking for a friend.
How did I?
What, turn off Mom?
No, they compartmentalize it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
So-
know how to turn off your mother, I would love to know, speaking for also a friend that wants to turn their mother off.
And if you know
Well-
if you know how to turn off Craig's mother, I'd like to know for another friend.
Well, I know.
Don't even start talking if you know how to turn her on.
Well, I think elderly men with the last name McCort they turn on my mother.
But young men with the last name McCort.
Yeah, I don't.
This is becoming an increasingly
this
uncomfortable
is like
conversation.
an Oedipus thing. Like I should rip out my eyes.
Not yet, Dan.
No.
It's audio. It's all audio.
No, but it was like, funny enough, last time we got together, we had an episode where we discussed the band Fish, my favorite band. I've seen them like 100 times.
Oh shit, name drop on a Fair Point episode.
Yeah. Let me name drop a number of other people I've met, all right? I happen to know Tom
Craig's
Cruise.
mom.
Yeah. Craig.
Wayne Mahar.
Wayne Brady. No,
No, that's a big deal, though. Do you really know Wayne Brady?
no, I don't. He's a little too white for me. No, but so I was talking about the band Fish, and in the middle of it, my mom was like, "We eat fish on Sunday." Just yelled that out, and I was like, "What you eat? Oh, you don't want to eat this kind of fish." Yeah, I mean I don't know if you have a heart condition. There's a lot of drugs. You don't want this, and actually, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. That you eat fish I'm glad that's going on my album. Thank you very much.
That was great. I had no idea. I did not suspect that.
That was my mother, yeah. You remember that part?
I do. I remember specifically being like, thanks, I'm glad that's on my album. Like, and I'm like, yes, I can relate to that. Like, yeah, thanks for throwing that shit on my album. Like,
yeah, I make one album every 4 years. Thanks for contributing that.
Constructive, not destructive, Mom.
Yeah.
but no, I didn't suspect at all that you knew the person. I was like, really?
It didn't sound like it. Yeah, that was the compartmentalization. Because, I mean, I knew it was my mom as soon as so it was very weird it's the only time in my life where I'd have to interact with her as though she was an asshole that I didn't know.
I gotta say, though, has she considered ghostwriting?
She's not committed.
Fish on Sunday.
Yeah.
She's not committed to it, no. I have to ask, have you heard from her? It was like, this is why I don't go to support your fucking shows.
Oh, afterwards, because you shot me down just because, you know.
Why didn't you bring me up stage and we did a duo?
No, I think she was pretty happy about the whole thing. I cut out all the stuff that would have offended her. And the show went pretty well, actually. It was a smaller crowd than I expected. It was probably like 40 people or 45 people. We're expecting more.
It's just funny. There's a point in there where you're talking about pedophilia and you're talking about cutting out parts that offend her.
But maybe,
wait, is there a part where I talk about pedophilia?
Yeah, about kids getting in the van with it. I don't have candy. Get in the van.
Oh, yeah. The bit where I'm like, that's actually, it opens with that. So it's like
much.
I open with, I grew up in the 80s, and then I'm like, we got that don't take candy from strangers lecture. We actually got that. You know who else got that, though? The Strangers. That's not a hard code to crack. Like, pull up in a truck. Hey, kid, I don't have any candy. Get in the fucking truck. I don't know. I said I don't have candy. What are you, stupid? Get in. My balls are dry. Yeah.
This was the edited version.
Yeah. No, I put that in because on some level, when I first heard that "Don't Take Candy from Strangers" speech, I felt like I was so young that if a stranger had said that, like, I don't have candy, I would have been like, oh, well, drive me home.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know?
not supposed to take candy.
Yeah. He clearly, they didn't warn us about guys who don't have candy. What if they do? Where all the candy guys are like, they won't fucking get in my car. I don't know what's going on.
This Sunday on Fox, Predators with intent.
Yeah.
they're catching on.
They're catching children.
Yeah, no, maybe that is one of the things that helped it be more accessible yet edgy, as I so eloquently put it earlier. But
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot less offensive than audible toxicology was. I know we just talked about kind of a pedophile joke-ish. Well, I'm shading it, but yeah, a pedophile joke. But for a majority of the special, I think is having performed it for different audiences, it's a lot more palatable than audible toxicology was, where there were, chunks in audible toxicology where I make fun of the mentally handicapped or 9/11. I have whole jokes about that. This was a lot less offensive.
there's something to be said for, like extreme ruthless irreverence, but also something that can talk about 9/11 and pedophilia and all these things in a comedic manner and yet not be, I think maybe it's the difference between like Family Guy, who goes all out there to be as offensive as they can, and then something like
South Park or Rick and Morty or Futurama or something that has like a more subtle undertone.
You can easily deal with any dark subject as long as you use tact.
Right.
Yeah, also, I think...
Did I just say that Rick and Morty and South Park had a subtle undertone? Anyway.
I mean, they do, but not probably what you're thinking.
Well, there's probably a subtext to it. I love that show, by the way. Rick
Which
and
one?
Morty.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
Excellent.
phenomenal.
Yeah. I was going to say, in writing the book, I found that... give me one sec.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, man.
We also kind of just did that here.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so in writing the book and, having spent a decent amount of time deconstructing stand-up and trying to explain it to other people, I found that in my own writing, even the topics that are more aggressive or where I don't pull punches, or topics that could easily be misconstrued as offensive for the sake of offensive. Having written the book, I go back and edit my bits and make sure that I'm not putting anything in my act that is offensive if it doesn't have some larger context or meaning behind it, some sort of complexity or some dynamic in it that I feel needs to be expressed. That's original.
So basically, it can be offensive as long as you're making a point about it.
Yeah. I think for both albums, people would be surprised at the amount of material I left out, just because it was moderately offensive and I didn't feel like it contributed to not to sound verbose, the cultural tapestry of humanity. It didn't add...
Not verbose at all.
I mean, my whole end game in this was to build a body of work that I'm happy with, that I'm really proud of. So, my success is not where I'd like it to be, but I'm still putting out albums nevertheless, and editing out chunks of material that aren't that I can't stand by. So everything that I've published, and I also publish videos on YouTube, I feel like offer a piece of myself that is unique, that wouldn't have existed elsewhere, you know?
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, as an artist and a content creator, sometimes that's better than a paycheck. I mean,
Yeah,
paycheck's
and you guys
really nice.
probably feel the same way.
Integrity
with
is
your,
what matters.
Yeah, I can tell in this fine studio. It
In
smacks
no
of
way.
integrity.